morning,
morning.
gentlemen. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
I see the coffee is working on Creed.
Yeah,
So far, so good.
I haven't had my energy drink yet, so bear with me. My son was still sleeping, and I don't like to take him away from his wonderful fun of going to the refrigerator and getting dad a drink, which is what he does.
When they're that age, you got to give them every inch you can.
Well, trust me, he takes every inch plus. He's finding new ways to see what he can push the envelope. Always.
That's how kids learn.
Yeah, that's how he learns. Yep, sure he does. So gentlemen, we're discussing today some virtual stuff. We've done a lot of the old comic images stuff. Now we're doing some virtual.
Virtual stuff.
Yeah.
Couple assholes. But
yeah, who needs that shit? I mean, come on. It ruined the game, man. So we're gonna tackle.
That we're talking about what 13 years after its official closure.
Exactly. I love using that when people ask, it ruined the game. Like, really? I mean, we're still doing virtual stuff long after it was ever in print.
What's that old Mark Twain quote? The rumors of my demise have been greatly exaggerated.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. So today we're doing what Virtual 2 and 3 combined. I believe Virtual 2 was a smaller set, was it not?
Yes, just 8 superstars. It was basically like a little holiday set.
Because as you recall from our discussion on Virtual 1 that you can find on this very YouTube channel.
Yes.
Virtual 1 was intended to be a one and done. So that's why the set is fucking massive and why everybody got a little something, and we threw in some stuff to help Revolution and Classic play better together, which that didn't exactly work out, but we didn't know that 10 years ago.
So with Virtual 1, and that was supposed to be an end of it, like that's it done, what sparked, hey, we've got a lot of stuff to do Virtual 2? I mean, what started that?
I've mentioned his name before, but one of the players in Texas named Chris Templeton had actually taken some initiative and put together some rough, sometimes very rough, ideas about having a WCW set. And he had some general ideas that we didn't use in Virtual 2, but that got changed around and used in Virtual 3 later for non-specific WCW cards. So when we realized that there was still a following, and this was actually bringing people back in, because now after a year of, Revolution, I don't want to mess with that for that crowd. Now we were presenting them with more options and saying, okay, we gave you a bunch of new superstars, some of which you'd always wish there'd been in the game, like Ultimate Warrior, Randy Savage, Four Horsemen, and Legion of Doom, plus some of these newer
and
talents.
And the Road Warriors, don't forget.
Oh, yes, both. Now we have MVP and, a Rock remake and Bret Hart. Oh, wow. So people are starting to filter back into the game. And with that, here comes this gift wrap package that says, hey, what if we took these ideas for these 8 WCW superstars and just presented it like a holiday set rather than going full bore like we did before? And this is beginning of 2009. And I was sort of enjoying the, wow, we did that for Virtual 1, but that's done. Oh, am I so glad that's all over with. I'm not going to ever do that again.
Definitely not.
So he comes along and says, well, instead of the whole shebang, we're just going to do, like a little holiday set level thing with these 8 superstars. Okay, that could work. And he had some good ideas, like Sting. Well, yeah, of course I want to see Sting in the game. Lex Luger. Yeah, sure, why not? He had an interesting idea for the Wolfpack. Okay, we'll bring more NWO content. I kind of wanted to see more of that anyway. One guy he had that we didn't end up using was Buff Bagwell. For one thing, there were picture issues. For another thing, the set really didn't have much meat to it. He had basically the Big Papa Pump ability, but for actions. Yeah, and it was like, that could be a little abusive. And a bunch of it had to do with being in a tag team with Big Papa Pump. Like if you played in the tag format, and I looked at the whole set and just kind of went, I can't even salvage that. Then I looked for pictures, and there really weren't that many of them. WCW was not nearly as good as WWF was about getting all the pictures and having that picture resources. It was just sort of, oh yeah, here's a bunch of pictures of Sting walking to the ring, or Sting celebrating after the match. Like, do you have anything during the match? So full credit to WWE for being the better company there and having lots of high quality pictures.
Who would have thunk?
Yeah, over time we actually were able to improve some of the images as we went back and updated these cards by finding newer stuff that WWE.com had found and put on their website.
That ended up becoming like the virtual Survivor Series set, right? Did a lot of updates happen from virtual Survivor Series?
Not really.
I thought a lot of graphics got redone for virtual Survivor Series. I don't know why, but
no, what actually happened later was, and we didn't really touch on this in the V1 discussion, but when we got to V3, I was very fortunate that talking to Bryson Yuzik, I think that's how you say his last name?
Yuzik, something like that.
I think it's like music, but it's with a Y and a Z.
Yeah, YUZYK is...
Yeah, something like that.
Or how you spell it.
So Bryson had some high quality card scans, and rather than what I'd been using, which was to scale, which really reduces the quality of what you're working with, these were massive images that we would shrink down to card size. And it was one of those things I hadn't really thought about, but once I saw it, it instantly made sense and went, oh, of course, that's the way I should be doing it. So I took the time to scrub out the pictures and all of the text by carefully laying little pieces of other background on top and blending together. This was a painstaking process to do for one card, but I did it for all of the different card types, which is why when somebody says, hey man, can I get your templates to make a SpongeBob Superstar or whatever it is they want to make? I'm like, no, you go put in your own work, pal. But,
Bikini Bottom Brawl. That's awesome.
Oof, something.
Yeah.
So anyway, because we had these images, I went back to Virtual 2 and redid all of the cards so they had a better look to them instead of these simple ones. Because anybody who's seen the first Virtual 1 and 2 images,
oh man,
they're it's like, okay, you're trying, I'll give you credit for that, man.
But even still, when I first introduced those to the play group, man, they all thought it was like the best thing ever.
Yeah. I mean, it was
just the fact there was something new. Like, oh, no one ever I don't like this car. I mean, it would be cool if it was a better image. I mean,
True.
No one ever said that.
But
we loved it.
When we got Virtual 3 together and we looked at the side-by-sides, we were like, oh shit, that looks way better.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like I go back looking at my old price sheets from some of the conventions I used to make. And the ones I make now, I go, God, I used to make that crap. That's great. That's so ugly.
Yeah.
That's always the case. You look back on your early work.
Yep.
But what we did do is go back. Well, what I did was go back later and completely redo Virtual 1 over time. And then I essentially re-released it and said, okay, guys, here's Virtual 1 again with, the high quality card images we're working with.
It's Virtual 1 remastered.
Basically, yeah. And same with Virtual 2. Yeah. So now instead of these, low res graphics with the, slightly pixelated text, now everything looked clean and looked more like raw deal cards in the overall quality of them. And along the way, we also made some better picture choices because we had more time to find things rather than just grabbing the first image we found for this, low popular person, like the Jamie Nobles and Hurricanes of the world, who were not bad, but they didn't do a whole lot in the WWE, so the picture resources were limited. So now we've got better options. We've got better pictures, and we remastered Virtual 1, Virtual 2. But we came out with Virtual 2 using the old designs just to, get it out there. That's what we had at the time. And we did these 8 superstars, which...
Who are the 8 superstars we did?
But we had the Wolf Pack, which worked out well because to help boost their set, we put 1 Sting and 1 Lex Luger card with a Wolfpack logo, so they were able to feed in and give the stable a larger set. Buff Bagwell was replaced by a Rowdy Roddy Piper remake because I think all of the other superstars that we hit with the Nerf bat with the initial Shenanigans card not JBL, because JBL was still a beast even without that ability. You know, natural 12, 2 in the limo, hat to pick anything up unstoppably. It's like he doesn't need any help. But Piper and Kennedy, and I want to say there's one other, but I can't think of who it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, Kennedy got a remake in Virtual 1. It's not that great. I'm still on the fence about whether we should have made him better, but it's tough because Kennedy was already gone by then, so we're chasing a dead superstar. So, just what it is. But anyway, we gave him some cards to help make up for the fact that his super strong out the box ability was gone. Piper, on the other hand, he got a new ability and he got a card in Virtual 1, but it still felt like he was kind of missing something, especially because this is Roddy Piper. You know, he's the legend term gets thrown around pretty easily, but he really was a legend. He's one of those guys that even though he wasn't a world champion or a this or that, he was always present and very much larger than life. So,
well, the thing about Roddy was that he didn't need the world championship to be a star.
Yeah.
So there was no point in putting the belt on him. It would have just been a waste.
Yeah. Same with DiBiase. I think he's another one like that. It would have been
to
nice
a lesser
to see him.
extent. Yeah.
Yeah, but then he just had his own belt anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't need your belt. I got my own.
Best belt money could buy. Look at all those diamonds.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we wanted to do something, and the Rowdy one didn't end up being that great, and probably still could use some help, but it's a little one-dimensional. But it did allow us to say, okay, here's a new Piper's Pit that you can use since we killed the old one, which was overpowered, as we discussed. See also the Unforgiven video available right here on VelaCards YouTube channel. I'm getting the hang of this, man. I can do it too. But we also gave him a few other cards that just fit, depending on the picture issues, which helped because he came back and did a little run around 2006, 2007, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. So he like messed around with Randy Orton and Carlito and a couple of those guys.
Well, yeah, and Jericho, I think.
Something like that, yeah. So hey, we got some cards for him, and then of course, probably the biggest individual superstar from WCW purely was Sting. You know, talking multiple-time champion. So that was fun to do, and we kind of focused more on the Crow Sting, all in black. Mm-hmm. We kind of stayed away from the old bleached blonde hair, wild, colorful face paint Sting.
Right, Surfer Sting was not represented here.
Yeah.
Right, and I always had it in the back of my mind that if we ever get enough pictures, we could do that as a remake, which we ended up doing in Virtual 6, which was sort of a secondary invasion set with WCW and ECW.
Yep.
So anyway, we got Sting, we got Lex Luger. Luger, I kind of could see where we could do a remake down the road for him because the set was really focused on the dynamic cards. So I thought, well, you could substitute something else later for dynamic. We just need to leave that door open. So instead of maybe having an RMS on this card, we'll just say cannot be blanked. So that way we can go in and change, okay, this remake uses Lex Luger cards, but instead of dynamic, it's this. And that later became total package with the bash mechanic in V4. Who else did we get? We got DDP. I have a story.
He was a broken pile of crap at the beginning, wasn't he?
Not broken as in super powered, but broken as in this doesn't really function.
Yeah.
It was a hot mess of trying to make a bunch of things work, but then if they were run as printed, they could have been massive. Like you would have had these maneuvers played with like a massive amount of stun for all of the fan favorite cards in your ring, because there's like a mid-match fan favorite card. His name escapes me because nobody ever plays it. And
it's right up your alley, Nate. Come on.
I'm thinking. Give me some time.
It's a mid-match action.
Yeah.
It's a fan favorite. I think it's like 4 fortitude, but it lets you perk for like you get plus damage and plus stun value for all the fan favorite cards in your ring. And the balance to that is it's very easy to reverse. Well, if we protect that, suddenly he could play something, I don't know, a dirty low blow or whatever, that has like, 8 extra stun. He's going to draw 9 cards when you reverse it. Like Whoa, okay. So we're trying to jump through hoops to make it work, but not fully make it work, but also protect it, but not. And it was the original version was a hot mess. I don't even remember what we did, but when I look at the list on Team Canada, when we've revised cards, I try to make the changes in purple so somebody can easily identify what's different about the card they're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look through DDP's set, almost the whole thing is purple.
Yeah.
So you basically rewrote them almost.
But pretty much, almost a full redo. The diamond cutter was ridiculous. Drew's mentioned this. It was intended to be like a 70 fortitude card. I was a bit of a DDP mark, I'll admit it, because I got to meet him in 97. It's a fun story I won't go fully into, but basically I hung around in the arena before, hoping to meet a few wrestlers. DDP was my top goal at the time because this is when he was red hot, telling the NWO he wouldn't join and all that. And I saw a couple people like walk by, like Chavo Guerrero and whatnot. And then I said, well, I'll wait for the next person and then I'll leave. And out comes DDP and Raven and Kimberly. Whoa. And so I had this all in my head. I was going to say something cool. And what I said was, hey, really? Hey, that's what you came up with? So he just stopped and he goes, hey, man, where are you from? I said, Palm Springs. He goes, walk and talk. So I hung out with him for like 20 minutes. Raven was just like, walked away. But we talked for like 20 minutes and really hit it off. So the idea of putting DDP in the game, I was like, hey, I'm all for that. Let's do it. Diamond Cutter kills fools dead. It's the best move ever. And I got a little carried away. So the idea was it would be a really expensive reversal that hits any card, doesn't matter. You try to do something and he's got it in hand. He's going to diamond cut you, game over. You discard your hand so you can't even sustain it down. You're just dead. You're better than disco, forget it. So we've come back and revised that since then.
I see the coffee's working finally.
Yeah.
We've hit that initial peak where the caffeine is coming into the system.
All we had to do was start talking about DDP and then everything,
right.
bang, clicks into gear. I
Literally
found the card that you were looking for. It was called Overwhelming Crowd Support from No Way Out.
That's it. Thank you.
Yep. And you were right. It is 4 Fortitude.
I remember some of this stuff. I can visually remember it, but in my brain, I can't zoom in and read all that fine print.
You guys crack me up.
So in Virtual 1, we introduced the Radicals, and we also made Dean Malenko there. We already had Guerrero. We already had Benoit. So that just left one, and that was Saturn. So,
you're welcome.
Exactly. Which is one of the concepts I wanted to do, was to make You're Welcome a recurring card that could keep coming back. So you could be like, offer handshake, you're welcome. Poke, you're welcome. Still probably one of my favorite Saturn memories is he's in a tag match with somebody against the Dudleys. And they did their whole, Devon, get the table. They brought a table, put the other guy through it. And all of a sudden Saturn rolls up and he shoves Devon and he goes, Devon, get the muffins. You're welcome. And Dudley boys look at each other. Bam, 3D. They just hit him or whatever. So unfortunately, this was one of the extremely few instances where we actually used a screenshot, because I thought sure we'd be able to find a Rings of Saturn picture. Yeah. I know Saturn's not a top tier guy, but it's his finisher. He's just laying there in the ring, put it on. It shouldn't be too hard to get a shot, even for these low-level WCW photographers they have. And so we put it in a screenshot for the time being. And I said, well, we'll find a different picture. And I don't know that I've actually seen a good picture of the Rings of Saturn performed by Perry Saturn since then. So they didn't even get one in WWE? Really?
It is what it is.
Well, if I find one, at least I can say you're welcome.
To get a good picture of the Rings of Saturn in WWE, he would have had to beat somebody.
Oh.
Plus, he did start beating people, but he would use the moss-covered three-handled credenza.
The moss-covered three-handled family credenza.
That's it. Yeah. Which, when I found a picture of that, I said, "Whoa, hold on, we're putting this in the game. We got to do this with the full title." Yes. Good stuff. That actually, by the way, came from Jericho's infamous Men of 1004 holds. when he was naming off all those holds he knew, that was one of them in there, which comes from like the Cat in the Hat or one of those Dr. Seuss books.
Yes, it's the Cat in the Hat.
Thank you.
Wow.
And somehow it became his finisher. So there you go. There's some trivia for you. So we got him in.
Wasn't Kevin Kelly the first person to call it that?
Sure. I can neither dispute nor confirm that claim. So, but we had Moppy in there. We had Flock Interferes, which was nice because we got a shout out to Raven. We had a good picture for that. And the other two were tag teams. Well, we had Wolfpack. They were stable, but still. We had the Steiner brothers, which we ended up redoing because it was an idea we were pushing too hard. I've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Sometimes you focus on a concept and you're like, all right, to make this concept work, now we need to do this. But what happens when this happens? Well, then we need to add this component. And you're building, it's like you're building with little old-fashioned building blocks, and your foundation is this little thing, and you're trying to build this big thing, but your foundation is unsteady on these couple little blocks, and it's just so ready to fall over.
So you do all the upper body work, but you don't ever work on your legs.
Sure.
Yep. Don't skip leg day, folks.
250 pounds of muscle and a good stiff breeze, and down he goes. So we ended up redoing them because somebody had proposed, we had to just do a Steiner Brothers throwback. I was like, no. First off, we don't have nearly the pictures to do secondary sets. Plus, that doesn't fix their original problems. But we just incorporated some of those throwback ideas a few years ago and cleaned them up from, instead of basically taking all of the back to basics moves and shoving them in your backstage area and being able to play them, 2 copies of them. Now we just changed up the way they work, and they function more like a regular deck, but with some similar ideas in how they work. Plus, we also got to give the Steiner line a big pop-up pump. I personally think it's fun to get to throw back things like that to the original guys where possible. Then we had a Booker T remake in Harlem Heat. I know he kind of already had, well, he did already have one with Booker Man, but this had a whole different approach, and it was sort of that pre-make feel that we'd end up using more as time went on. That let us also get Stevie Ray in the game.
Yeah.
So those were fun, and with his original idea, some of which were close to what was used, some of which were those revised ideas we talked about, and some of which were closer to what came out. DDP, for example, was way different in what he proposed, Chris, originally. It was supposed to be like you had a separate deck and you could be fan favorite or cheater, and then you would import those cards in, and then you get perks depending on when you were fan favorite or cheater.
That
I was
kind of
like,
got done later, didn't it?
That's a cool idea. We should have brought that back.
Yeah, I said, no, that's too much to mess with. We're not going to do that.
Was that our truth?
Yes. But with fan favorite and heal, it actually made more sense because there's a much broader range of cards you can use. And at that point in Virtual 5, face and heal. Sorry. You know what I mean. Fan favorite, face and heal. Damn it. Now you got me on the wrong thing. Maybe I need more coffee going here. With the face and heal, there's a much broader range, so it made more sense to be able to really diversify your play, whereas fan favorite and cheater is a bit more limited. Now we also do have something like that they introduced with Aleister Black in the Virtual 11 set, but it also comes with a bit more of a mechanic to not just be able to use one or the other, but to switch in a way that enables some more functions. So it's a little more interesting than just an either or on what was admittedly a limited set of pools in fan favorite versus cheater.
Yeah, that was a really interesting design.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't even see myself. I'm like, gnat was flying in my face.
Yeah, those will ruin presidential debates. Let's keep them out of there.
Yeah, well, they get their own trading cards. I mean, they made Topps. There's a thing called Topps Now, where literally something happens today, they'll have it printed. You can order it the next morning, and they make the print to order. And they had one for Pence, but it's Pence Fly. They had that. Made a card out of it.
I don't want to get political on Maine. So.
No. But so those,
story.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Actually, no, I won't go to that. Never mind.
Fun story.
Fun story for another time.
For another time.
That's for off the air, folks.
Sure.
So here's a little segue for you. So we have this Virtual 2, but some of the non-superstar specific WCW ideas, we didn't want to put, well, I didn't want to put I just wanted to have it just the superstars.
Because this release has no non-superstar specific stuff at all. It's all just straight 8 superstars.
Right. It's all thriller, no filler.
Pretty much. But we had this WCW stuff sitting around. And in the back of my mind, I recognized that NWO t-shirt was a failure. The idea that you could join the NWO, anybody could do it, but it needed to come at a cost of something. Otherwise, why wouldn't everybody just join the NWO? And admittedly, a lot of people do. I see a lot of decks now where you have like, I don't know, pick a random person, Nydia. Nydia joins the NWO. You know, Tori Wilson joins the NWO. You got these random people that never had anything to do with the New World Order, but everybody's joining the NWO. So it might be a little too good, and maybe it needs some sort of countermeasure down the road. The team can figure that out. But anyway, the idea was, how can you let people join the NWO, but have it come at the cost of having something else? Mm-hmm. And somehow I stumbled on the idea of having an allegiance.
Yeah, I think you and I brainstormed that together.
Mm-hmm. We might have tossed around some different names, but allegiance was one of the main ideas that caused us to move forward with Virtual 3, along with some other unused superstar ideas. Some thoughts on maybe having a couple more Revolution superstars to, throw into the mix and make that a little more spicy. So I always felt like pre-match could use just a little bit more room. So Birds and Stones, we were able to get allegiance phase that would happen at the beginning, with the idea that whatever allegiance you do, the allegiance should be completely untouchable. Like, that's why you see a lot of RMS and no boogeyman if there's a reverse in there, because the idea is, if you have an allegiance, then you are swearing allegiance before anything else happens. So are you, with the exception of NWO, because I use a whole paragraph for a silly mechanic, which is basically, you could come out and say, yep, I'm WCW, and then you pull off your t-shirt and there's an NWO t-shirt on underneath. Aha, surprise. But that really didn't need to be there, but whatever.
It was cute.
It seemed fun at the time.
From a rules standpoint as well, putting allegiance before the venue phase also,
that's what I was going to ask you about.
Yeah, it helps onboard the player into kind of getting used to that, because if you don't care about allegiances, then you don't have to worry about a weird interrupt in the middle, like, is allegiance between stipulation and manager, between manager and event? No, it's just at the start, so that if you don't care about it, you don't even need to think about it.
Interesting. And you guys, there's some cool allegiances that were added to Virtual 3. I thought they were all cool. I think I used to play all the time if I could, because I like what it offered. Like that. It was I'm always on the winning side.
Yes, which was a World of Warcraft reference.
Oh, nice.
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah, I snuck that in. It's a voice line from one of the Dreadlords, Varamathras.
Huh.
We just tweaked the end a little bit, because the line says I'm always on the winning side. And to avoid that being just on the nose, we added a little bit, my side.
That's right. I'm always on my side. Well, I like the one because it gave you the +1 hand size and +1 capacity for your mid-match as well. That's kind of what most people, I think, pack that for.
Yeah, it was one of those things, kind of like the original NWO t-shirt, where it gave you perks but at a cost. But the cost wasn't as harsh, and the perks were not, you could pack these other cards. It's just a direct, you have a little statistics bump.
Is the RMS symbol on that particular card strategically put there in his hand?
I think that just kind of worked out that way, and we left it.
Sometimes those work out really good. There's a Mark Henry card where he was shoving Daniel Bryan into the ring post, but it placed just right that it looks like he's shoving Daniel Bryan into his own logo. I was like, ow, that has sharp edges. What's the card where we actually covered up? Oh, yeah, it's in this set. It's Allentown.
Yep.
Eric Velasquez.
Velasquez.
Mhm.
Velasquez, yeah. He was the world champion of like 2009, I want to say.
Yeah, it was the year after Pittman.
Yeah, and he really didn't have a card idea in mind. I think he was one of those guys who just showed up when there was like 4 people playing, and he just happened to be the best one that day, so he won. No judgment against Eric, mind you. But so at the time we said, well, you must know how to play this game. Join play testing. What do you want to do for a card? And he's like, I don't know.
I don't know.
So what he ended up suggesting was something like, just get these random moves that our guys like to play, you put them underneath there, whatever. We collected a couple pictures, and as it happens, the one of him and his friends outside the game store there in Allentown,
Mhm.
The RMS symbol is just kind of covering up something on the pants. Like, you don't know what's there, but it seems like unnecessary censorship. Like, you wouldn't even think about his pants if there wasn't something covering them up. Censored. What's censored? Did he forget to wear pants that day? What the heck?
RTC won't stand for that.
Yeah.
There's
So
a lot
we
of great
also had,
allegiance in this one. I like that whole phase. It was an interesting aspect of adding for the pre-match and adding an allegiance like that, because every one of them had some kind of a perk depending on what it is that you wanted, which was really nice.
Right. It's a way to kind of give your deck a direction right out the box.
You got ECW, which I didn't want to do too much for because we gave them a lot in Virtual 1. We gave them House of Hardcore, we gave them Extreme Rules match. And keeping in mind that at the time, we're still thinking about All Access as a very viable path. Yes. So that had more to do with letting the Revolution extremists sort of cross over into using the classic cards and incorporating the belt and giving extra options along with the ECW title throwback we'd made.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it just sort of knitted some pieces
lovingly
together.
titled trash can belt.
Yeah, that's the first one, but I'm talking about the throwback one. Oh, you're right. The throwback one is the trash belt. Never mind.
Yes.
Coffee, work faster. So we had the main ones, which were WCW, ECW, WWF. WWE.
Yep.
I knows who pays my salary with the idea that, well, if you're loyal to Vince and the organization, then you get a little bit of Vince's, well, not his ability, but the thing.
I mean, I know who pays my salary is practically his ability anyway. So
yeah, so you get a little bit of that where you can have lower fortitude. That I think Nate came up with that idea, and I just said,
if it involves Vince, it was probably me.
Yeah, that's a good one. We got to keep that. Winning side was just the idea of what if you want an allegiance that says, you know what, I don't want any of that. What if your allegiance is just to yourself? So that's where we got winning side. McMahonism was one of those weird ones. It was a concept on TV for a little bit, and one of those things we kind of shoehorned in. I don't think it would have broke anybody's heart if we hadn't included it, but it does have some nice perks for people who
broken my heart.
I know. But we had the WWE allegiance, so. But McMahonism was sort of a tie-in to Prophet of McMahonism, the Shane O'Mac card, and some other things we ended up including in this set. But it does play nicely for people who have big draw abilities like Victoria,
or the game.
You're burying your hand and you're seeing more cards, so you can look at those cards and decide you want to bury those before you draw the actual cards once per turn. Then, of course, the NWO t-shirt we mentioned. WCW didn't really have a focal point like ECW did. So we came up with the idea of I think that might have been part of what came over from the non-specific stuff Chris had in WCW ideas. And we also had no I in team, because I thought, what if we had something where your faction, mostly looking at the All Access crossover. So
right,
what if you're
factions.
ECW original, or you're a degenerate, or you're a Tomorrow's Legends?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. What if you're focused on your team? And I saw that as a way to bring some classic factions into the game later on, which we would do in the next set, where we had the Heenan family and the Hart family. We had the $1 Billion Corporation, which, well, that's another subject, but suffice to say,
we'll get there.
Mhm.
The corporation, much like more corporations, has a lot of documents with a lot of fine print.
Well put.
Because that's what raw deal people want. They want more words on cards.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh well. But that's another conversation.
So that last Allegiance was where the big boys play, I believe.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the WCW one that
Yeah.
he was just
Okay.
discussing.
So-
There was some good key stuff in this besides Allegiance stuff too. There was some. I think that people continuously continue to pack and play to this day. I mean, wasn't drawing a blank from this release that became like a must pack for most people? Like it became
Drawing a
heavy play.
blank is definitely something that is its own archetype, and if
Yes.
you're building into it, it's really strong. And that was definitely a Creed project.
I can actually remember the moment I was at work and I was walking from my office to the restroom, and I'd been thinking, like, how do you turn a negative into a positive? And like, what if having something being blank was a good thing? And I remember I was taking a few steps, and then it all like clicked in my head, and I went, so I actually turned around, went right back to my desk, and started writing out the idea that would become drawing a blank. And we've had to tune it over the years, and I think it's about at the right balance level now. But the idea being that if you have a blank move, let's give you some protection to make that hit the board. If you have a blank ability, which we've done in some cases for guys like Kennedy, then let's give you something back instead. So you got to recur a card or draw an extra card if your hand size was below a certain point. And I think the impetus for that was the idea for Kali, because we have the great Kali in the set, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit here. But he, I thought, what if he just had no ability? He's just Kali. He's just a big guy, you know, kind of like the game originally, or not the game, Triple H was originally.
Mm-hmm.
He was a 10 card hand size, but really had no ability. But they added more
His ability
cards.
was literally none. Isn't his starting hand size enough?
Yep.
Yeah. So I thought, well, but then they corrupted that later by adding some of the text from other cards in
Right.
the SS3 version.
Yeah.
So he technically had an ability. And in the back of my mind, it was, well, what if he had no ability? You know, because he's just Kali. What is he thinking about when he comes to the ring? Nothing. He's just Kali. Ah! You know?
Yeah.
And
How am I going to make it to the ring?
Yeah. Those two pieces really clicked together and went, okay, I see how this could be a good thing. And even if somebody's packing it for one, if they get hit with, you know, whatever effects, Cerebral Assassin or Al Snow's card that blanks your ability, hey, now I've got this other thing I can use.
Yeah.
That was a fun little function that I agree really did kind of become a staple going forward for certain decks.
It did, because it seemed like, and it was a big discussion a lot, I thought, in the boards for a while too, after it got released. There was a lot of play going on with that card. What else we got in this release here? I'm looking at other stuff here.
Backhand slap throwback got thrown in as a little perk for Back to Basics.
Yes.
We wanted them to have some sort of answer because they couldn't pack Sidewalk Slam. Their options were really limited for stopping an irreversible. So we said, well, we got this picture here. Why don't we just make a backhand slap?
And we added a little Godfather text because, you know, pimp slap. Got to keep your pimp hand strong.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Now, someone like me who likes the Revolution format, they got a lot of help in this too.
Oh, yeah.
I think everybody who got made, as far as like Christian and Kurt Angle and all those guys who came out for Rev 4, got a corner card. And then we have, you know, a lot of faction support in here too.
Yeah, we tried to give one card to every faction, which sort of went along with having the factions boosted in that Allegiance card in All Access. But now we also gave one more card to each faction to sort of give them a little something and try to help balance them out a little more. Let me take a look here. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the New Breed is one of the factions.
Yeah, New Breed.
And
so
the Attitude Adjusters too.
And tomorrow's Legends felt so strong that we just kind of gave them a throw-in card. It's there. It's not great.
Yeah.
But that reversal of theirs is so ridiculous. I even argued in playtesting that it was way too good. I think they had it was like 3 and 3, and we got it marked down to 1 and 2 as far as what the rider effects do.
Correct.
ECW Originals was pretty good, so we just had a little card to move that along. Same with Degenerates.
Yeah, they both did what they did pretty well.
Yeah, I think
Originals,
New Breed was the one
steal
that,
the first turn was really strong.
yeah, I think New Breed was the one that really needed a boost if anybody
Yep.
outside of the New Breed was ever actually going to run it. In some
Correct.
cases, it was actually better to run, if you're a New Breed, especially if you're playing in All Access, it was better to run ECW Originals anyway to tie it into the whole ECW brand.
Right.
So we wanted to make that a little more appealing as well. In addition, we actually came up with 4 superstars with some ideas what were lingering around. And people said, well, is that something we'd want to do? Would we want to add more Revolution superstars? I said, yeah, sure, if we've got a good idea. And some of them were a little strong, but we managed to balance them out. So, like, we got Christian was, I think, way too good initially. Just
Yeah.
throwing antics basically with almost no downside.
Sorry about
Just
that.
with reckless abandon. It happens. That's what playtesting is for.
That was my design.
I don't think that when you're designing a set, the first thing in your mind is how balanced is this going to be? Because balance is not a one-person operation. When you're designing a set, you should be thinking about, how do I make this cool? How do I make this functional and fun to play? Then from there, you refine it with playtesting to, how do I preserve these things without also making it abusive?
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of a late night idea, playing
Some of the best
around.
ideas come at
Yeah,
4 a.m.
playing with Mike. You know, my partner Mike. We're just sitting there.
Yeah.
When Krieg gave us the go ahead, like, yeah, you guys want to play around with Revolution 4? Go ahead, you know. And we just sat there and just kept using pieces of paper to play things and write things out and scratch it out
Yeah.
and start over again. It's like that. And the whole, antic manipulation type stuff is like, okay, I like to play some antic stuff. But he was pretty abusive. He was pretty, I mean, he
Yeah.
became a top 5 tier guy right out the gate because of the abuse that he can do with it, with antics.
Yeah, he was definitely strong, and that was one of those really good fits because Christian, while by no means a bad wrestler or anything, was definitely one of those guys who was kind of weaselly in his approach. Like, he could wrestle you, but he was also going to try to pull some shenanigans and maybe have a thing happen and over here. So it really fit the theme to be able to just throw those antics in once a turn.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's move on to back to the regular stuff. We have, I think, another card that I remember seeing a lot of people talking about and discussing when this came out was flanked by Arena Security.
Yeah, that was my fault.
Nate actually, and this is why when Nate tries to downplay his involvement in the game, and I laugh and wave that off. Yeah, there's a bunch of things I can look at in this set that I go, oh yeah, that was one of Nate's. Oh, that was also one of Nate's. But flanked, the idea being, what if you're just protected? You always see those guys come out with protection, mostly the heels, but they come out with all the security. Nobody can touch them. How do we reflect that? Almost a Goldbergish sort of thing as well.
Right.
And
the original thought in my mind was Goldberg being flanked by those 4 security guards that were always right around him so that he could do that big walk down to the ring and nobody would screw with him. And from a gameplay perspective, I'm like, all right, let's just say that I just want to do my thing. So what if I have a card that just says, I do my thing and you can't screw with me, but I'm going to pay for that if I try and go too crazy with it.
Because those security are also keeping you from doing a lot of things because they're in your way as well.
Right.
So, and unfortunately, we didn't have the picture we wanted originally, which was Goldberg. But we did find a good one where I think it's Lashley and
Umaga with Vince in the middle and all the security around them.
And there's an even better one we used in the virtual Survivor Series with Kevin Nash, and he's just got a row of security in front of him blocking anybody from getting there, and they're just all standing shoulder to shoulder. I was like, there we go. And I've since found a good Goldberg picture, so I don't know if I ever released it, but at some point I probably should do that flanked with Goldberg art on there, but we'll see.
You guys also introduced a new shenanigans card in this one too.
Yep.
We did.
Really? That's enough shenanigans, man.
And it turned out that it wasn't.
By a long
the idea
shot.
with the shenanigans cards, and I will absolutely let you get where you're going, Creed, but the idea with the shenanigans cards is that we are not prescient, we're not perfect. So rather than just being like, okay, this is bad, how do we reassemble the pieces here and errata a bunch of cards to make sure this doesn't happen? No, we're just going to print another shenanigans card. It's not going to cost you anything. It'll just be in front of you, and you can look at it and say, oh, yeah, this is busted, so don't do this.
Or just get rid of all the shenanigans as a whole. Wipe them
If
from
you want to play in
wipe
an
them.
environment where shenanigans don't exist, give it a shot and let me know how it works out for you, pal.
Yes,
Just throwing
good
it
luck
out
with
there.
that. Roddy Piper, or It's All About the Game deck. Good
Hang
luck.
on, let me go get my Leader of the Edge army where I play Who's Cooler Than Michelle McCool 7 times in the pre-match phase.
Okay, I'm just joking, guys. God, I'm just joking.
No,
Jeez.
you're providing a counter argument, and here's why.
I wasn't
those who
counter-arguing at all.
Wonder why we do this. This is why we do it, because there are some relics left over from the classic era where they didn't have the ability to go in and edit the cards. They couldn't go in and revise. The best we could hope for is Survivor Series 4, had it ever happened, to go in and say, okay, this card, it's actually active. Or this card, let's tone that down a little bit in an MRP. Or we're stuck with yet another silver bullet. And, we don't have machine guns. We have revolvers. They can only hold so many bullets. So the game was ultimately starting to look like there were 17 strategies. And if you showed up with strategy number 4 and your opponent only had silver bullets for strategies 12, 14, and 2, then, hey, guess what? You would win. We didn't want that. We wanted to tone it back down, like we've talked about before, to make it a more even playing field, more in the luck of the draw and less in the luck of being unprepared for strategy X or Y. There's always going to be that, but some of these strategies were so extreme, like I kill your whole backlash deck, or, I'm Andre and I just destroy your hand, that we wanted to shave off some of those really sharp edges and try to just bring everything a little closer to even in some of the more extreme cases. Andre got a major tone down with really that's enough shenanigans. But I had it in the back of my mind that, okay, if we do another set, we absolutely should do an Andre remake. And, we'd end up doing that in Virtual 4. And so the whole picture was, as he said, basically to issue errata and hone down or just wipe out cards that were just too much for your average deck to play against. And some say, well, why don't you just leave that to the player? Well, we did, and we still got a lot of complaints. But yes, you have to read the shenanigans. The funny thing is, people don't actually look at them anymore. The real players,
they know what they do.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is typical with any of the cards. I mean, once you've played a deck and you built a deck, you know what all your cards do. So now you're really kind of spending your time focused on your opponents like that. Like, okay, what the hell does your cards do now? Because I know all mine.
Right. So when you have, It's All About the Game, there's a text to blank that in the first shenanigans card. Okay, you don't have to read that text because nobody's playing with It's All About the Game. Nobody's showing up going, well, if they don't reveal their shenanigans, I win. Nobody does that. So you just have this more cultured environment where it's less of these outliers and people can play through a more regular game, the more it was kind of designed to be, and have a bit of a smoother experience. There's still going to be things that are strong. There's still going to be disruption. It just tones it down to a slightly more even playing field.
Right. It's All About the Game was designed to embody one environment, that vengeance environment. It was not designed to crush the game forever.
It did a number, that's for sure. It sure did a number.
Yeah, and vengeance was worse for it.
Yep.
So yeah, my point that I was getting at, long-winded as it is, was that the people say, oh, all these shenanigans, but you don't read the shenanigans card. You just play accordingly. It's like Break You. Break You has a lot of words to make sure it works exactly how it's intended, but nobody necessarily reads all of those. If they see Break You or they know Break You is going to be out there, so they play around it, great. If you encounter Break You, you might pick it up and go, okay, how exactly does this work again? I know what it does. I just need to double check to make sure exactly how it works. And then you put it down, you move on with your life.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's how most of these cards are. So when people say, oh, there's too much text. Okay, one, we got to step around all the little loopholes from the landmines that exist. So there's not some, oh, but if I use this with this, I can play 20 cards and you can't stop me. Shoot, we missed that. So we got to close those loopholes. The other thing is, once you see it, you get used to it. it's no big deal. It's just the initial stick shock of coming in and going, so many words.
So before we start going over the superstars that were introduced in 3, one last card that became, I think, a staple for every deck is your reach exceeds your grasp.
Yep.
Somebody had that idea when we first started talking about virtual. I don't remember who. I think it might have been Dan Posey, but it was one of the Texas players that thought it'd be cool to have a reversal when somebody's trying to play something way ahead of their fortitude curve, like a big Papa Pump. You know, who wants
Or largest
to throw,
athlete.
yeah, who wants to throw this big maneuver right off the bat, and you just go, hold on, you're trying to hit something that's way above it. We also saw a lot of volley multis coming in, so somebody suggested adding that, and it just kind of incorporated that into what could be a possible solution, but ended up becoming a staple. And I'm okay with that because it.
I think that
everybody knows
ace
it
really
exists.
makes the card a staple.
Yes, because you can just get rid of it if you want your mid-match slot back, or you can use it to get around, kind of like similar to a restricted use, to be able to clear out a path to have a cleaner option to hit your reversals to help keep some of that interactivity going back and forth in the game.
And it was also a way to jailbreak you out of the volley trait.
Right. One thing I do want to touch on that amused me, 2 of Nate's ideas that came in.
Oh God, here we go again.
Well, I'll point out a quick one that I think is worth mentioning. I'm pretty sure it's one of yours. It's a blindside takedown.
Maybe?
It might have been a combination of ours.
Yeah.
Like we went back and forth and compiled it. But the idea was just a blindside card that just pops out at the beginning of the game and helps out some of those cheater cards, because fan favorites, it's great to be back here in, was such a great reversal, and we didn't really have things like don't be a douchebag yet.
Right.
So we had Carlito Says, but that was one. But the reversal of fan favorite just made cheater seem to pale in comparison, other than the volley trait. It really stands out with punch after punch and some of those other volley cards, but otherwise it's just kind of okay. So we had blindside takedown that could be thrown out there. And eventually we saw what Tess was doing and had to revise that to say, okay, Tess, no, you cannot put 2 of those out at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
But he created 2 cards, one as a joke and one that was serious. The serious one doesn't really see play, and that's where again with this crap throwback.
Yes.
The idea being that if you have, I think it might have actually been before we neutered McCool and limited it down to 3.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the idea of, if you just keep playing multiple copies of the same card, you can just go, again with this crap, hit it. And then we also gave it, because I was really looking for a way to use those pre-match, mid-match hybrid templates. I love them. I think they look great. Not because I made them, but I just love the purple into something else. It's
Cosmetically, it's appealing to me.
yeah, something you don't see a lot of.
It's a fun aesthetic.
Yeah.
I think there was only 2 in the printed game, Backstage Shenanigans and For the Love of the Game.
Correct.
But the other card we made as a joke was Back Throw.
Yes.
And Back Throw ended up becoming a staple because it hit so many throwbacks, especially as we would throw more things back over time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that was a wacky little.
Yeah, I was just trying to be cute. Or what do we call something that reverses throwback? A back throw. Yeah, that'll work.
Stupid name, but it's in the game.
It's better than a standing switch.
That's right. Yeah. This is so true. I tried to help out in Rev 4. So what superstars did we get with Rev 3?
About 20, I think.
Jesus. Well, I'm sure we're not gonna be able to cover everyone in details like that, but for sure, who was all added?
There was a John Cena remake. The champ.
That's right.
That ability began life as an attempt to make Santino Marella, if you can believe that. And it was a cool ability, but not for Santino. So who is just really resilient and never goes down? Oh, yeah, John Cena.
Plus, he was made a little later in the game, so he got cards progressively, but it still felt like, for a guy who made as big an impact, he was basically the Hulk Hogan of the modern era.
Yep.
Why does he have such a small set as compared to a Triple H or a Jericho or all those guys who were there from the beginning when he's had such a big impact. So being able to have a remake of him, let us throw more cards in there and build up his card pool some. Then there was a conversation I had with Nate where I said, I have an idea. He says, what's that? And I said, what if we did a Vince remake? He says, go on.
Go on.
It's true.
So we got the genetic jackhammer, which just out of all the titles we could have picked, that just seemed to be the one, especially right then, that just clicked for him.
There's a lot of things in the genetic jackhammer set that are kind of indicative of the era it came from, like McMahon's $1 Million Mania, which was an angle that they did for like 2 months that nobody remembers, but it was happening and it was current, so it's on a card.
And the lead pipe shop. It's not like something he always did. It was just for a while he was hitting people with lead pipes.
You say that, but that was something that came out after I was watching the McMahon DVD and just watching highlights of Vince's matches, and lead pipes just kept coming out every time Vince was in a match. It was his signature foreign object. And I can even hear Michael Cole saying, Mr. McMahon with a lead pipe. So we got it in.
And of course we had to have the power walk.
I was got an itch, sorry. Hold on. I'll use my Vince McMahon autograph card here.
Yeah, fuck
yeah. And at the time he was also coming off that angle with a certain current president, and where he was getting more active, he became the ECW champion. So it was kind of more of an angle than overall, this represents who Vince is. But the idea with the genetic jackhammer was to make him more of the Vince is in the ring, pulling some shenanigans. He's hitting you with a lead pipe. He's using his own force more physically, besides just being, the genetic jackhammer that he is fighting you in the ring, but he's got all this help to sort of disrupt what you're doing. Whereas Vince McMahon, the superstar, was more of the chairman with the political ability, but he wasn't that great in the ring, which is why he had to resort to foreign objects and 0-42 moves. So by having a direction for those two, it kind of gave us a path in our thinking on how we wanted to approach it. And of course, the biggest grapefruits, once I found the picture where he's making the gesture to Shawn Michaels, it's like, yep, we absolutely have to do that card.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's just a picture becomes an inspiration to make a card.
Absolutely.
Inspiration can strike from anywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
One superstar that we were looking at based on a group that was coming together was the Legacy. Now, originally I had pictured this while it was happening as a Spirit Squad type design, where you would have two guys active at any one time. Some combination of Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes,
Ted
DiBiase,
also Manu, and there was one other guy who I cannot think of, because they seem to be sort of bouncing back and forth for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And then they abruptly basically said, no, they got rid of the other guys, and it was just the three of them, that core group. So this was one
but
of
not
these...
the core, that came later.
That came later, yes. He's like, what the fuck just happened?
something that probably should have been headed for the cutting room floor, but we'll get into that when we get to the Virtual 5 discussion, which we will need to book like a 3-hour meeting for or something.
Yeah.
We'll do a part 1 and part 2.
Oh, I think so.
That's good.
So the Legacy and Priceless really saw the opportunity to, by making both groups, with Priceless as just those two guys initially, and then Legacy as the whole stable together, gave us the opportunity to have two different directions and essentially remake the set we were already making, but also give them a 10-card set, because we were limiting at the time to just 5-card sets. Much like they did in the original set, where you had 3 starters, 2 ultra rares, there's your 5 cards. It was only later that we basically said, why are we doing this? We want to make 10 cards for a guy, let's just make 10 cards rather than trying to dole them out over future sets.
Yeah.
So they got their 10 cards. They got some cards that would, at this point, we're starting to see, okay, not only can we make this set, but we could potentially make more. So just in case, let's leave some doors open. So we'd put a Ted DiBiase logo on a card. We put a Cody Rhodes logo on a card, so that, well, if we get to that point, hey, they've already got a card. They're walking in the door with something. One thing I was kind of happy about was the way third generation Superstar was developed as a throwback, because we left it open that when this card is chosen for your ability, you put it on the bottom. So that gave us the ability to reverse engineer abilities just for that card, which seems silly, but often by just having a card being chosen, hey, if that card happens to be third gen, then you can put it back underneath.
And that let us say later, if somebody came out that happened to be a third generation Superstar, we say you can pack third generation Superstar, and we don't specify whether it's the original or the throwback. So then if that person just happens to have an ability that chooses cards from somewhere, and you happen to pick third gen, hey, it goes off. It's one of those things where a tweak to a line of text gives you a lot of options down the road.
Things like that helped us improve our design and trying to keep a more open-minded approach towards the future, not just within this case, but in general. Like, let's, instead of saying do this, let's say when you do something like this, so that we can come back later and expand on that or modify that effect. And I think it's played out well, and it's been a good lesson for us. And there's some other Superstars in here that we've kind of touched on, some that are just there. The Great Khali, that was what if we had just a drawing a blank Superstar. Originally I had them at 11 hand size. Excuse me. Just because there was no Superstar that had 11 hand size. We had
there's
12s,
10s and 12s, but no 11s.
So I just thought that'd be fun to do, but he was testing out just too much with 11 to start. Plus, when he drops a little bit and gets under 10, he's drawing a blank. And with what we gave him in the pre-match cards to help build him up, with what he had in All Access from his Revolution cards, it was just a bit too much. So we toned it down to 8, and sadly, we had to save the 11 for another day.
And is there any like?
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Nope, you first.
I was just going to ask if there's any like key Superstars in here that you guys found to be the most fun to develop and play.
I'll let
from
Creed start with that.
V3.
Well, for you, I think Kozlov, you did really well.
Yeah, that's
with that
exactly
Kozlov
where I
guy.
was going to go for me. I really enjoy the moving parts of Vladimir Kozlov because, one, his character is just ridiculous. He's a big Russian that just mauls people. So how are we going to do that? Well, okay, we have this bash thing, and bash is a neat mechanic, but it blocks out a lot of other stuff. What if it doesn't? So originally we were more measured with this, and we're like, okay, you can pack non-pre-match bash cards. You can also have one of these: face, heal, chain, heat, or volley. I think at some point you moved that to 2. So you could have like face, chain, or chain heat if you wanted to. And that had a lot of legs. Kozlov had some really neat directions he could go in. Of course, we had to say non-pre-match because otherwise you're just going off to the races with 3 fortitude and you're just making a chain deck. But I had a lot of success with him with volley, shockingly enough, because the way bash and volley kind of interface together, you have big lead-ins and then your volley stuff just starts taking off. But I thought he was a cool Superstar that was a lot better than I expected him to be from his character on TV, which is something that happens a lot in Raw Deal, and I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, because Kozlov, had such longevity with the WWE.
Oh yeah, months and months.
What about for you, Creed?
The one nice thing I liked about Kozlov was we never had a picture for it, but I always liked when Al Snow would grab a guy, get a kind of a double underhook. It would just headbutt the guy over and over again. I always thought that was a fun looking move, and never saw a picture of it. But when Kozlov started doing it, hey, let's slap an Al Snow logo on there, and we can finally get that in the game. We can kind of backdoor in some support. I'm looking over these, and I see a lot of things where we had an idea that we wanted to make somebody, and we just sort of worked in what they do based on what they made us think of, like a MAGA.
I get the general feeling like this release, this set for you was like just like we're putting it together, and nothing really made you excited about this release for you personally to build.
I think probably the one I built the most was Genetic Jackhammer, just because he fell right into my hit people with foreign objects wheelhouse. That's one of the types I like to play. Hassan, I played around with a little bit. Since we talked about him in, what was that, Unforgiven? That he was
yes
considered for, and because he became Snitsky.
Yeah.
So now Dad had to have him some sort of heat-based ability.
Mm-hmm.
And we just sort of cribbed together some ideas and based on the pictures we had to put something together, because unfortunately we're very limited. WWE wasn't exactly pushing to get more pictures, but I found...
Yeah, not so much.
Yeah.
Not so much.
I found the show pictures that they would do for each, SmackDown episode or Raw episode, so I was able to glean some from there that were usable. Santino definitely had to be made in the game. I think the idea was for him to be like Chavo, but with antics, which really screams All Access. So we had the Casa as his little YouTube show or whatever it was back then, that was designed to be, well, even if you don't want to play in All Access, here's a card that will make your cards antics so you can still use his ability. But I think that was almost an apology later where we moved away from that, along with that silly diva reference because of Santina Morella.
Yeah.
The less said about that, the better.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Speaking of things that tried to bridge into All Access, Raw Guest Host is one of those things that is a snapshot of the moment and really only works if you're playing All Access, because Raw Guest Host really cares about having a corner. And it was an interesting design and a way to kind of salvage corners, because corners were obviously super strong to the point where we printed, 3 bullets against them? But I think Creed and I can agree that as a concept, corners were kind of a mistake. Raw Guest Host is a way to be like, okay, here's how corners maybe should have been done as something specific for a specific person, rather than any asshole can pack Undertaker cards.
Hey, I was that asshole.
I was that asshole too.
Yeah. I think that was the biggest problem, was that
you made us all
have
assholes?
A guy.
Well,
I didn't call you that.
Keep firing, assholes.
Was that you'd have a guy with like a high risk ability, and he's balanced for what he does, and then suddenly you pack Rey Mysterio's in your corner, and you get these 2 irreversible high risk. Okay, here's a good example. Mr. PPV. He was generally balanced. Okay.
Ooh.
Now you drop in. Yeah, high tier, definitely. But he was, designed to be balanced for what he has. I would play him with the Stone Cold corner and go drop in like Austin Elbow Smash. Not so much that, because it didn't get the protection. But I could play Austin Elbow Smash cannot be reversed and get rid of the can only be played after text. I could play the cannot be reversed Stomp a Mudhole.
Yep.
Along with, Austin Antics. It really changed the strength of some superstars. But where Raw Guest Host was specifically designed to accommodate that, unfortunately we had a little too much in the, well, then if you can do X, then you can't do Y. And it became a bit too limited. And I'm not even sure that we've really still got a playable superstar without that All Access component. We've added in some stuff over time to try to say, okay, well, if you're not playing All Access, you don't actually have a corner, you get these other perks, right? Huh?
Yeah.
But I don't think we've quite nailed it. So that
it's
might
like
be
ripping
one.
out somebody's heart and just putting a pool pump in there. You tried, but it's not going to work.
Enjoy.
Yeah. I have this nasty taste of chlorine in my mouth for some reason.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a fun idea based on, for those who weren't around back then, they had a guest host for Raw for about a year. And this could be a celebrity. It could be an ex-wrestler. Jesse Ventura was a guest host one time. They had numerous things they did to kind of make things fun and interesting. So you never really knew who was going to come out next or what wacky thing they'd do.
Right.
Come on, Bob Barker. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
Bob Barker's a fucking legend.
Yeah.
The Price is Raw. That was comedy gold right there.
Especially with IRS on it.
Yeah.
Do these
Thankfully,
prices include tax? No, of course they don't include tax. Well, you always have to think about tax.
and boom, instant support card for him.
That's
Yes.
right.
There was some like swagger where we just kind of tossed them in, like, oh, he seems important. Anybody got an idea for this guy? You know what? That's good enough. Let's do it.
To be fair, Swagger was also a vessel for Collegiate Champions throwback.
Yes. Which we saw as a path to make that card available in the future when we say, oh, you know, X can pack Collegiate Champions.
And rather than chasing down an ultra rare from Insurrection or Survivor Series 3, you can just have the virtual one, which is not quite as good, but it's available.
Mm-hmm.
So we did the thing where we make a throwback so that VelaCards guy isn't losing out because these new throwbacks are better than what he's selling.
Right.
But also to
Wow.
Not just you in particular. When we make throwbacks of printed cards, we always have the secondary market in mind, and we don't want to just crater somebody's value.
Once is enough throwback. This is better than what you've got. And Tony goes, dude, how cool.
That's not cool.
Well, it's not just that. These people who traded and bought like 10 copies of Once Is Enough or 30 copies of Once Is Enough. Okay, now I just go down to the printer and all these copies of Once Is Enough that I scraped together, they just go in the bin. No.
Yeah. As somebody who has collected 30 copies of Once Is Enough or more, yes, I wholeheartedly agree. We did not want to do that.
We can talk about the old throwbacks versus, printed stuff, at different times like that. I have a whole bunch of opinions on that.
I'm quite sure. And we talked about that at the time that
We did.
I assured you, we don't want to do that. We don't want your secondary market to tank because we're,
because a lot of throwback stuff got put in for this release that came around this release. Right. Revolution of Mind, and once they all got kind of thrown back for this release during this release time.
Right, because people were saying that, cool, we want to start playing again, but these cards are a massive pain in the ass to find, especially in high quantity. So we wanted to make them available.
Yeah.
But if you had the printed one, you were better off.
We
all
wanted
the staples to close the gap there a little bit.
All the staples were in this one. Revolution of Mind, Once Is Enough, Get the F Out.
Yep.
You guys even did Master Manipulator, living the Good Life, Dynamic
Did
Finisher.
we do the inmates for Running My Asylum, or did we leave that alone? Okay.
Basically, any of the GM cards, just because we also had Vince in here, and I think Guest Host is a GM.
Probably.
Let's see. Yeah, Guest Host is a GM also. So it felt like if we're going to make more GMs or chairmans or whatnot, then we should make these cards available so somebody goes, oh crap, I missed this premium rare from this one set that offered this thing and so on. So, but that's why I kind of went on that little tangent, because I know we did release some throwbacks with this set, so it does tie it in. Some of these we just sort of wanted to crib together a guy who deserved to be made, but we didn't necessarily see a direction for him. Kofi comes to mind.
Yeah.
That we just said, okay, what does he do? Well, he hits high risks. Okay. And boom, 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 the thunderclap. When he first came out and he was Jamaican, he had this triple clap thing he would do. I think they do pyro with it. So yes. I'm sure somebody's looking at that now and going, where did they come up with this card title? Well, back in 2008, when he was a fresh new face.
And of course, he's really come a long way. You have to be, he's gone over that accent. It's gone away. That Jamaican accent's gone.
Yeah, but I think when we sort of added new stuff, both with him and Evan Bourne when they had their tag team, which was nice because it let us just put them both together. And then with the New Day stuff, we were really able to sort of flesh him out more and make him more playable. At least I hope he's playable. But I think he's got an ability that's unique enough that you can roll with it.
I'm just getting I don't know if it's because we started early today or what the case. I'm getting a feeling that that Virtual 3 just seems like it's, we did it. We put it out. It's got some cool moving parts.
The thing about Virtual 3 is that it's kind of a bigger set in terms of superstars. So like you led in with, we don't want to go into super long detail on all of them. We'll be here till 4:00.
Oh yeah.
But there are some cool ideas in this set, Beth Phoenix sticks out to me as a diva who also gets to pack multis and just beat your face in.
Festus was one that somebody had suggested as fantasy cards, and it was like, oh, that's a cool idea.
I like Festus was one of my favorite decks to build from that release. I love playing that whole day. He had some great, not only does he have a built-in amazing ability, I think, but he has some great pre-match stuff that really helps out too.
Yeah, Festus was an interesting idea that really encapsulates his character of he comes out to the ring and he's just kind of there, and then the bell rings and he wakes up and he starts just beating your face in.
Liked it a lot.
We had to put, unfortunately, some silly text in there like cannot be packed by Eugene or something like that, because it just, we were looking at this stuff going, oh man, if Eugene can pack all of this. So I think originally in that shenanigans card was where we started to say, okay, Eugene can't get all the virtual cards, because we were just having to put so many riders on these cards to keep working around his ability. It's like, you know what, just stop. He is so good with all of the printed moves in Classic. If we want to perk him, let's perk him rather than continuously dumping bucket loads of maneuvers into his set every time we do anything with virtual. So there's that. Oh, goodness. There was, Miz and Morrison was kind of one of those ideas I had with him and John Morrison.
Yes.
That we left the door open to make John Morrison later. I don't think he's in the
After
set.
we'd already made Johnny Nitro.
Yeah.
As a promo in Virtual 1, I believe.
Right.
Yes.
Which was sort of part of an Eminem remake, sort of. It's like Molina got the Molina cards from Eminem, and then Nitro got the moves from Eminem or some other stuff.
Except for the snapshot, because he's obviously not doing a one-person snapshot.
Right. Come on.
Where when they changed him into John Morrison, and then they had the Miz and Morrison, we were able to sort of build from this with Johnny Nitro getting another finisher, and then with the Miz and Morrison cards, and then into the Morrison set himself. So it was a fun little thing. Random trivia, by the way. On the card, and there are losers.
Yes.
There was a pair of guys who came out and pretended to be DX. You know, the usual, oh, look, it's our opponents we're rivaling with, but it's obviously not them, and they beat them up. Those two guys getting beat up right there are the Young Bucks. So the Young Bucks are on a raw deal card. It's a blink and you miss it sort of thing.
Yeah.
Carlito and Primo Colon were sort of they were hot at the time because they were the first people to unify the Raw and SmackDown belts when they decided to just have one set of tag team champions. And that's noted in their cards, but also it gave us a way to sort of remake Carlito as not just that draw a bunch of cards and play a bunch of in the interest of fairness and win.
And win. What is for this release? I mean, you guys spent a lot of time doing Virtual 1.
Yeah.
How much? Obviously, you probably did fine-tune things and got things done quickly for Virtual 2. And then Virtual 3 kind of fell in pretty quickly as well?
Yeah, I think it took around a year for all of the ideas to filter in, to streamline into what we wanted, to decide what we were going to do to fill out some of the sets and reach that nice round number of 250.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you guys decide to go with 20 superstars in the set? Why not just do 10? Why make it so big?
We weren't thinking about how many superstars. We were just thinking about who we were doing.
Yeah.
And some of the ideas just fell in, like we have Gail and Molly, but what if we did them individually and Molly would later come later? Molly would show up later on in a future set when we had a few more pictures.
Come on, man. She's pure and wholesome. Come on, pure and wholesome.
Right. Funny thing, in Survivor Series 3, random trivia for you, they were worried that because Gail Kim had left, that the WWE was going to not let them make Gail and Molly. So they had an alternate where it was just Molly Holly. And instead of, wake up, look around, change reality.
Change reality, yep.
It was going to be I am pure and wholesome.
Nice.
And then I guess they got permission to go ahead, so they scrapped that. But I remember seeing that at one point. Yeah, so we said, well, what if we just made Gail Kim? She's come back. She's, being really pushed as a Divas champion.
Yep.
And so we put together some ideas. Yeah. There's several here that I'm looking over where we basically took an old superstar and kind of did a remake. Another one is Funaki becoming Kaientai.
Yep.
Where
or rather, should I say, indeed.
We had just enough pictures to make them. It's like, you know what? Let's do it. Because that way, if you like the Funaki card, if you have the Funaki cards, but you don't necessarily want to play Funaki, hey, here's another option.
So in other words, if you're a breathing human being, you don't have an option to use your Funaki
I liked
cards.
Funaki.
I know you did.
Funaki,
and I like beating that Funaki deck senseless.
Natural 12 cards.
I like that you liked it.
He's like a poor Japanese JBL. You know, he's got 12 cards. He just didn't get the limo. His limo got left back over there.
Such a disappointment.
Yes. And somebody had a great idea in fantasy cards for the Bellas. And so I actually reached out to him and said, hey, I like what you're doing with these Bellas. Do you mind if we incorporate that in virtual? They're like, no, go ahead, sure. So that's where we got Brie Bella, Nikki Bella, and then the Bella twins as sort of these moving parts. And much like the legacy I described earlier, by making 2 sets, we were able to say, okay, we're only doing 5 cards, but here's 5 here, 5 here. And then if you want to play the Bella twins, you can play basically all of those.
I really like the way that the Bellas turned out, because we had a cool idea. At the time, they'd been doing that whole twin magic thing where one of them would take a big move and just roll out of the ring, and then the other one would slide out from under the ring and replace her. So we incorporated that into their set where you can start as, say, Nikki, but Brie is hidden in the backstage. And then when you get hit with a big move or something else happens, you hit roll out of the ring, you can switch. So you always had to start as the same Bella, but you could flip-flop between the Bellas as the match goes on. And of course, if you're playing the tag team, you can't do that because you're both out there. They're not going to get fooled by a switch when you're both in the match. But it was a good way to separate the individuals from the team and also incorporate the flavor of their character into the game mechanic.
I thought it was kind of a fun concept overall. I thought it was kind of a cool way to build a deck. Never really built them myself. I saw a lot of interesting decks being built around them. I never played quite heavily when it first came out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you have that kind of moving part where it's very kind of tactile, where, okay, I play Roll Out of the Ring and then, I switch Superstar. That had never been done before. The closest we gotten was like Spirit Squad, where...
Or maybe Dude Love, if you use that whole mechanic, you could become Mankind or Cactus Jack.
Yeah, that mechanic that had way too many moving parts and was not at all worth it, because Dude Love's ability was way better than Cactus and Mankind's.
Yeah, well. So then we threw in some other ones. Jericho was being seen a lot, so we just kind of did a 2-man power trip of that. The whole War on Raw, War on SmackDown. Well, that played out well. Okay, back Raw on SmackDown cards, especially since they had cards with both brands.
Right, Jericho's a Raw guy and Big Show's a SmackDown guy, so we had to marry them somehow.
Who else do we have?
I mean, you guys put a lot together in this release. But it seems like for V1 and V2, it's like V1 was like, we're done. It's put a book into it. We're kind of done. The response was great for it, obviously. So you kind of knew you had to come back with some more stuff, possibly. So V2 becomes like this holiday set. So by V3, it sounds like with V3, it sounds like you guys are like, listen, we kind of got something going here. Maybe we're going to have a V4 and a V5 and a V6.
Well, also, I believe that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, V3 was the set where we actually started calling them virtual, because Virtual 1 was originally Revolution 4.
Correct.
Virtual 2 didn't originally have a title. It was just WCW Invasion. So by the time V3 came around, we were like, hey, we should probably stop using this Revolution nomenclature, because this guy, Tony Vella over here, wants to make some virtual Revolution cards. So why don't we find a different phrase that we can use? And I keep saying virtual, but we hadn't thought of that until we just spitballed it coming out. Well, let's just call them virtual cards.
I don't remember if I got the idea from, I've talked before about how it's kind of inspired by what they were doing with Buffy, the CCG. I don't remember if I got that term specifically from them or it just came up somewhere else. But the idea of having a virtual version of the game just really clicked and fit the theme of what we were doing. And yeah, I'm not quite sure on the timeline, but I think it was either during this set or right after this set, we said, hey guys, if you don't mind, we want to rename everything and we'll just start the virtual series. That way, if we do want to make a virtual revolution, it is a revolution set.
Correct.
Rather than just being an all-encompassing, everything is revolution, because it really wasn't. I mean, you look at this set and yeah, we have a lot of revolution cards in there compared to what we do now, but it's still what, 10-15% of the set, maybe
About that, yeah.
If that, yeah, about that.
So it doesn't really make sense to keep calling them revolution sets.
There's one other promo superstar that I want to highlight that I had a lot of fun with, both in design and in playing, and that's the Nature Boy.
Oh, not what I thought you were going to say, but yeah.
Well, I had a lot of fun designing the Man Dynasty, which is what I think you thought I was going to say, but no, Nate it's a way to get a flair without having all the riders from being classic Ric Flair. It still has that Flair feel, but instead of I just blow up your ring, it's don't screw with me. If you're going to try and screw with me, I'm going to outsmart you because I'm the dirtiest player in the game. I'm the Nature Boy, jet flying, leer riding, wheeling, stealing, son of a gun.
And it just fit to have him be a cheater and fan favorite guy.
Oh, yeah.
And this was another one of those pre-make ideas that we talked about with the Rowdy one.
Yep.
Where it was like, okay, let's step back to an earlier time.
That also let us make him as a legend, because in
Yes.
WCW, he really was treated as a legend.
In WWE, he was like, it's Ric Flair, he's that guy.
Yeah. Because he was so iconic in WCW, I think they wanted to downplay that in WWE. That's a conversation for a whole different topic.
He was one, though, that we had, sometimes I would just crib up ideas. Like, what if you had somebody where you could retarget what somebody wants to do? Like way back when the game was still in print, I suggested having a lock card. I didn't know what else to call it, but the idea being that, let's say you have this ace. Good example, outsider distraction for X-Pac.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have a lock card. So if somebody wanted to, don't try your outsider distraction away, they would have to remove the lock first. So like when you would remove that card, you first have to remove this one. So that way you can keep your card for a while longer and it wouldn't be so, easily removable. But that idea of I'm aiming for A, but I actually hit B was kind of in the back of the mind. And somehow we ended up merging that with the idea of, hey, what if we did a Ric Flair, remake for his WCW side back when he was, the man in WCW, when he was like one of the most iconic champions, figureheads, whatever.
When he was the president of the United States. I mean, WCW.
Yeah. and rather than his hit and miss WWF/WWE tenures, which, yeah, he's great. He's a champion. Okay, bye. And now he's back and he's, doing some political stuff with the whatevers and has a match with, yeah. And then where he was part of Evolution, but he was just like the old guy in the back who could put on a good match. But I really wish instead of putting on a match, he would have just put on a shirt. The man boobs were a bit much. That's just me. But we had some fun ideas that we were able to crib together. And one of those discoveries while I was digging up old cards, it started, I think, with looking for Gail Kim support. Mm-hmm. There was a card suggested for her, and I don't remember if we used it or changed it, but it was going to be a Gail Kim and Molly Holly support back in the classic game. And then she left, so they didn't do it. And when I was looking for that, I was finding other cut cards that had been designed and they didn't end up using. And one of those was Sheriff Austin. Mm-hmm. I said, well, do I have pictures? Yes, I found pictures. How do we make him? So we made Sheriff Austin. We ended up tuning him up later because he was kind of dull, but it was just a general strong ability plus enforcers. There you go. But he wasn't really fleshed out much. We finally relented. They talked me into letting him pack, and that's the bottom line, with Stone Cold Senso and Stone Cold Stunner, because where a lot of the GMs, they might have a move or two, but mostly it was, okay, you're just representing John Cena, or you're the GM and you're sending in Stone Cold as your enforcer. Here, Sheriff Austin really would get involved, and it pretty much consisted of him coming in and doing a Stone Cold Stunner to somebody. So, okay, let's let him pack that. And over time, we were able to add more to it and make it a little more exciting. I think he's a fun superstar now, especially with the whole "Do you want a beer" card. That's just me personally.
You want a beer? I want a
And
beer.
we had to add some honestly doofy text to Sheriff Austin's Quad Runner because of the way that Raw Deal looks for words in things. So when a card in Raw Deal asks if something has a word in the title or text, all it's looking for is that string of characters, no matter where it is. Which is why if you're looking for something with kick in the title, Super Kick reads as true, because Super Kick has K-I-C-K in the title, even though it's nested in another word. Or Apply Illegal Leverage has leg in the title because leg, L-E-G, appears in illegal, even though it's part of another word. So Sheriff Austin's Quad Runner has a bunch of stuff to protect GM actions. But the string GM appears in another word that comes up kind of a lot in text, which is segment, as in draw segment. So it would affect things like ring general or do something or show me something. And those cards started to become abusive with Sheriff Austin. So we had to add some text to be like, no, we really mean actual GM cards.
In fact, if I recall, Drew was the one who broke that.
Yes.
Drew was doing that, and we're like, what?
Yeah, triple
what?
Show me something to just nuke hands.
Oh, for Pete's sake. All right, let's go in and fix that.
Yep.
And thus the need for having things being spelled out for people, really. I mean, that's why some things can be wordy. But once you understand what that text means and does, you don't go back and read it again. It's just done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To be perfectly honest, when I do play, I still read cards. I read cards that don't have a lot of text. I remember the last time I played in ACMT, I found myself reading Unscrupulous SOB because I know what it does.
Yeah.
But I didn't remember, A, if there was anything else. Does it make you draw or discard or anything? Or B, because I hadn't played in a while. Or B, what specifically does it reverse? My brain says ace or action, but I need to look at it carefully to remember.
Ace or non-unique action.
Right, exactly.
See?
And so it's like, and that card doesn't have a lot of words. So it doesn't really matter. You just use the words to identify specifically how it works. But after a while, you know what it does. You know what its purpose is. You know why you're going to use it. You're not looking at an action when you're trying to find a reversal card. You know, you're looking through your reversals and you just go, okay, that's for actions. I need a move reversal. That's non-unique. That's not going to work here. And you just do all this in your head. Mm-hmm. And it's just a matter of people looking at the volume of things they have to get used to and going, oh, that's a lot of words. And I really wish they would take the time, like a lot have, to start slow, start with one set, because this would happen to anybody. If you said, I'm going to teach you Raw Deal, we're just going to use the printed cards, you'd still have a lot of words to read.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm going to teach you Raw Deal. We'll bust out a couple of Gab decks, and you're going to be a babe in the woods. Totally lost.
Yeah.
Heck, I taught a friend to play Revolution.
Yeah.
And we played a game or two, and I just gave him something simple like Sabu. And still, he's got to, okay. All right, so this reversal hits that card, right? Okay. You still got to read. And Revolution, as Anagoth once said, is kind of like Candyland compared to the the full game of Classic and whatnot.
Well, this is interesting releases we have here. So like that WCW stuff was kind of cool. I think people always wanted to see that in the game anyways, having that stuff. I hate when they go, can you make TNA ones? Can you put Ring of Honor cards in? I mean, come on.
This is not TNA Raw Deal.
Exactly.
It's not Ring of Honor Raw Deal.
Exactly. And then I didn't really realize how big Virtual 3 was. I forgot. I totally forgot about that because I think about, Virtual 5 and Virtual.
Yeah.
In Virtual 1, I mean, those are some big ass sets like that. I mean,
1 and 5 are the two massive sets, but 3 is still big.
It's still a pretty big set like that. And I always forget that Virtual 2 was, like a holiday set. And I remember when I was, trying to archive that stuff like that, even for the VelaCards Facebook page, trying to give the folders, like there's no non-superstar specifics. I forgot. It's just straight superstars. That's all it was. Yep. Which is something to be said about that. It's kind of cool just to have here you go. Here's some new superstars. Go play with the card pool and have fun.
And that's something we forgot for a while. And by we, I probably just mean me. But it wasn't something we revisited again until later. And we were looking at like, okay, we got Virtual 6. This is all going to be WCW and ECW guys. Now we have Virtual 7 coming up, but we don't want to just flood the market again like we did with Virtual 5. Let's limit the number of superstars that are there. And then we want to do Virtual 8, which kind of is some other stuff. Like there's some newer superstars that are coming out. We're starting to see people come in from NXT and whatnot. And we said, well, what if we just do like a holiday set, just like we did with WCW, just boom, 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 here's your superstars, that's it. And that ended up working well for us. So it's kind of a shame we didn't do sort of that back and forth of here's a fully rounded set with new non-specific cards and superstar support, but here's just a holiday set with a couple of guys you can just jump in and play.
Because it seems like development time would take, like you spend all your time developing a new release that has new superstars, new cards with new mechanics, like that. And it's like, that takes a long time. And then it's like, you know what, here's just throw out a couple, new superstars,
Right.
and just kind of rotate that, every year kind of thing,
It seems to be working out a lot better for us. And with that Virtual 2, we were also able to then add in anything else that we didn't quite get in Virtual 3 as card support. We also threw in, like trying to follow the pattern of older sets, we also threw in one card for everybody that was in Virtual 1 to sort of help round them out. Sometimes we were
just for the new guys that you introduced in Virtual 1.
Right.
Yeah.
In some cases, we were just kind of filling a slot. We didn't really know what we wanted to do with this guy, so we just said, well, I don't know, let's do a thing like this. In some cases, we were fixing where they were a little underpowered, so we introduced something new for them. We also threw in some cards that just seemed to fit. Like we found a picture for Devon doing his finisher. Devon didn't have a finisher. Yeah, so boom, he's got a finisher. Tori Wilson had that little finisher, but she didn't really have a big finisher, and she had started doing an X Factor type move. Mm-hmm. So I think I looked it up and they called it the nose job. I don't know how frequently that was said on TV because, to be perfectly honest, I wasn't watching a lot of Tori Wilson matches. But, boom, she gets a card. And the other thing I wanted to do was to finish something I didn't get to in Virtual 1. I had set out to make a support card for every superstar, but some of the remakes, like People's Champ and Highlight of the Night, didn't get one because we made Dwayne The Rock Johnson and the Sexy Beast. We also didn't make any cards for the specific members of the Spirit Squad. And I saw that as a project where I wanted to make sure each guy got one card. So we really did do every superstar, but also to help round out their sets and make them stand out a little more from just being a Spirit Squad deck playing Johnny to actually playing Johnny, besides just beginning to pack underrated and so on. So that felt good to finally close those gaps and finish those up. Although, man, I've said this before, it was hard trying to stare at the Spirit Squad members, trying to figure out who was who.
What, you can't tell Mikey from Mitch?
Mitch, I could tell because, or no, not Mitch. Nikki. I could tell Nikki because, okay, that's Dolph Ziggler now. I got that. But, and then Johnny I knew because they kept him around. But some of those other guys, I was like, okay, let me see that superstar card.
Don't worry.
Okay, so this is Mitch.
Don't worry.
Right,
their parents can't tell them apart. So.
Yeah. But all in all, it was a lot of fun to make.
All right, guys. Got to wrap up here.
All right.
This is again, I can't believe how big a set that was. I mean, you started naming off all the people.
Yeah, we didn't even
set.
touch on the Revolution cards that were in it.
I know. Maybe we'll do when we do Virtual 4. Maybe we'll kind of revisit Virtual 3 a little bit to clean up, and then kind of go into Virtual 4, because Virtual 4 is definitely a much smaller set.
Yes.
But that was it was good stuff, man. As always, I love having you guys on. So I have so much insight you guys provide. Well, you guys are the designer, of course. Nobody's gonna know it's gonna be you guys. I mean, come on.
Well, I appreciate you having us on.
No, I appreciate you guys waking up early today. Because I didn't want to get up either.
Here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
that I worked late last night, and I was the first one here.
Yeah. Normally, I get up, I stretch my legs, get some coffee. Okay, feed the animals, no problem.
Get your workout going. Do your 5-mile run.
I woke up like 25 minutes before we
gotta get that
scheduled
leg
this, and I
day
was going, coffee.
I
We
still
go
haven't had
animals.
my energy drink yet. I gotta go get washed up. We're heading over doing some pumpkin carving today with some family members. So,
Nice.
Have fun with that.
but I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for coming on again. And I don't know, we'll talk off air. I'm not sure when we're gonna be able to do another one because I got some stuff coming up here as we've talked about before. But
Yep, everybody's super busy this time of year.
we'll figure it out, man. We'll figure it out. So we're not
Yep.
going away, even if we don't have anything come until after the first year. We'll bring it back.
And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the VelaCards YouTube channel to get more of this content and click that notification bell so that every time Tony posts a new video, you get a notification so you can come and watch it.
Wow, someone's working on their plugs here. That's awesome.
And also look forward to the second half of virtual arriving sometime before the end of the year, and even possibly a holiday set on the horizon.
Ooh, spoiler. Sneak. Cool, man. I appreciate it, guys.
All right.
We'll get back to doing this again sometime soon, hopefully.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Out.
Have a good one, everybody.